the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan Task Force on this lovely February 9th. And please give your attention to a short video. I'm not hearing anything. Is any?
Yeah, I don't hear anything as well. If we want to read along, I don't know if that
we are reading
for everybody.
I know for the record, we will not, but so basically the video, just for the record, is highlighting what the rules are and how we're conducting this meeting under Zoom pursuant to the current COVID emergency rules. And it does tell you how to participate. If you want to use, you can raise your hand by doing *9. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and after 3 minutes, staff will lower your hand and mute your mic. And we request that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing that information is voluntary. And then more information about our written public comments in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice. And almost all, I believe all of these instructions are also included on the agenda that accompanied, that was noticed prior to this meeting. So we apologize for the audio not working on our video. Thank you. So Jackie, will you now conduct the roll call?
Yes, thank you. Member Barnes.
Present.
Member Burgess. Member Braxton.
Present.
Member Carlson.
Here.
Member Franklin.
Here.
Member Hudson. Member Hirsch. Member Kamara.
Here.
Thank you. Member Levin. Member McCrary.
Here.
Thank you. Member Meyer. Member Thompson.
Yeah.
Thank you. Member Toth.
I'm here, and I also just want to note that Supervisor Burgess joined right after you called her name.
Oh, sorry, Supervisor Burgess. Are you there? Oh, thank you.
I actually wasn't planning on attending. I just literally walked into a hotel room from traveling all day. So if you need me for the quorum, I will stay. But I want you to know I'm melting in front of the screen.
We do have a quorum, so it's up to you.
Okay. I will stay, but I do need to wash my face, and so I am here.
No worries. I have you down on the roll call. Thank you. Okay, and so Member Toth, you're here. Thank you. Let's see. Member Xavier.
Here.
Vice Chair Haskew.
Here.
Chair Geringer.
And I am here. So
thank you. So we have all members present except for members, let's see, members Hudson, Hirsch, Levin, and Meyer are absent.
okay, thank you. And I do want to thank Supervisor Burgess for making sure we have a quorum, and welcome to Washington, D.C. But I also want to just recognize Member Hudson, and that the latest update that I have is that he is getting stronger and is, moving through his rehab. And so just having us all recognize Member Hudson. So we will now move on to public comment. And Jackie, have we received any written public comment?
No written public comment received.
Okay, and are there any members of the public who would like to speak to the task force on any item that is not on the agenda, but under the purview of our body. Do you see any hands raised, Jackie?
I do not see any hands raised.
And I don't either. So we will move on to agenda item 3, which is our consent calendar. Are there any members of the task force who want to comment on or remove an item from the consent calendar? I see shaking of heads and no hands raised. So, and any members of the public who want to comment on the consent calendar item? Okay, do I have a motion
So moved.
and a second? Not
I'll
all at
second.
once. Okay, I think we had both. Okay, so member Pascu has made the motion and member McCrary has seconded it. So Jackie, would you please conduct the roll call vote?
Thank you. Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Burgess,
Yes.
Member Braxton,
Yes.
Member Carlson,
Abstain?
Member Franklin,
Yes.
Member Hudson, Member Hirsch, Member Kamara,
Yes.
Member Levin, Member McCrary,
Yes.
Member Meyer, Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Toth,
Yes.
Member Xavier,
Yes.
Vice Chair Haskew,
Yes.
and Chair Geringer.
And I'm a yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously with Member Carlson abstaining and members Hudson, Hirsch, Levin, and Meyer absent.
Okay, thank you. And I want to, as a point of personal privilege, back up for just a second. And I want to welcome any new members to the task force due to changes in appointments and things like that. I do see and want to welcome Supervisor Ken Carlson. And I thought of this because Dr. Levin has also been appointed to the task force. And so if anyone else is new, I did look at the roster. If you want to raise your hand so that we can recognize you as well, please do so. And of course, welcome back to all of you who were on the task force as we went into the end of last year. So, and into this new year. So we will move on to the agenda item 4, which is our regular agenda items. And we will turn it over to Ying initially to introduce folks to present on the Office of Accessibility and Equity Coordinated Entity 2023 Work Plan. A lot of long sentences and titles in this meeting.
Thank you, Chair Geringer. That is a long name. Ying Smith, Director of Mobility Programs. I'm here to present to you this 2023 work plan. I'm going to actually also invite Naomi Amata from Nelson Library to help me co-present. I'm going to first share my screen, and it's also in your agenda package. So hopefully that actually you can see a little bit better. So we after the authority board approved the framework for coordinating entity for accessible transportation, our staff and our consulting team work together to prepare a work plan. And Naomi will go into details. I want to share with you that we have quite a bit of work to do, even though we say we just focus on stage 1 and starting stage 2 in this calendar year, but there's still quite a bit of details. Not only we want to set up this coordinating entity, we also want to implement and improve some of the short-term implementation projects. This is very important for us to keep both paths going to show some results to our customers and to all of you. So you can see in the first 6 months, we have more details. Probably in the second half of the year, there will be a few details. It's not like we won't get busy in the second half. It just we need to continue to work on those items to go in more details. And here, we hope you see this is a live work plan. And as we make progress and as we make adjustments, we will update this accordingly. So with that, I'd like Naomi to walk us through the task by the month.
Thank you. So as Ying mentioned, this is an active living document, and the more detailed items for the second half of the year will become available as we move closer to that time period. But we have plenty to keep us busy with for now. In January, we already met with the working group to update them on where the project stands and some of the activities that are happening, and to get their input on this work plan and their interest in their future work for the rest of the year. So you'll be hearing more about that later in this agenda. So we, in this month, we are here to present the work plan to you today, and also you're going to get some important updates on the program manager recruitment. And we're also going to give you some updates about the One Seat Ride. We are pulling together information about, or I should say examples that will help inform our bylaws and our membership for the OAE Advisory Committee. And those will be, that will begin to be presented to the working group next week. But that's going to be a several month process. It's not going to be a fast, these are our roles and responsibilities and this is who should be on it. It's going to take a little bit of work and back and forth. So we're planning on that. So we're going to continue to discuss that with the working group in March. The CCTA board is going to receive some updates on the project manager or program manager, and approval of other contracts as necessary. Then in April, we're continuing with the working group to talk about these memberships, roles, responsibilities. And we're going to begin to ask the working group to help us with drafting the OAE budget and work program. That's not going to be finalized right away. We need a program manager. Well, we don't necessarily need a program manager, but we think it would help. And we're going to need this committee's input as well, but we figure we should start working on it early. This committee, we're going to talk some more about the One Seat Ride, and you'll be hearing more about that a little bit later today as well. And we'll begin to bring the membership and bylaws and roles and responsibilities, some of those items to this committee for initial review. And we'll also have an update on the means-based fare pilot. So then in May, the working group will finalize their recommendations on the membership and bylaws to send to this committee, and continue to work on the draft budget and work program. We hope that the CCTA Authority Board will be able to look at OSR improvements and receive updates on the advisory committee for the OAE and how that development is going. And then in June, this committee will make a recommendation on the membership and bylaws for the OAE Advisory Committee, and also begin to discuss the one call, one click. And this committee will also think about if it's time to sunset, to turn over the reins to the new advisory committee. In the meantime, the working group will begin to look at the CTSA, or Consolidated Transportation Service Agency, process, and what that entails, and so that some guidance can be provided to CCTA on advancing that process, and also looking at ways to empower and improve perhaps the Paratransit Coordinating Council Committee. Also in June, which is a big month, the Authority Board will look at the membership and bylaws for the OAE Advisory Committee for approval. So we'll then be continuing on with the CTSA and the PCC options and our pilots. So I'm not going to go through the second half of the year in detail because, as Ying noted, that's really going to evolve as we move forward. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We're glad you're all here and happy to answer any questions.
Ying, did you have anything else to add before we
Um,
open for questions and comments?
Sure, yeah, thank you. I just want to point out that this item draw a little bit of discussion at the working group meeting. There was a note we want to consider how our current PCC, the Paratransit Coordinating Council, is functioning, and we want to look for some opportunities to reform and improve. There is a little bit of overlap of responsibilities between these two committees. So we have that. We don't have an answer. We really don't have an answer at this point, but we just want to highlight, like put a note that it was something we need to address as we move along, and probably in the June timeframe. Definitely there's more work to be done in the CTSA destination. Again, that was the item drew quite a bit of comments last year. And we expect to continue to have quite a bit of dialogue on that topic. That's all we have to present. And again, just happy to answer questions. I'm going to close the screen now.
Thank you. So that we can all see all of the boxes. So are there any members of the task force who have questions or comments on the timeline? I do want to thank staff from the first conversation early in January to begin sort of looking at the year ahead. The timeline is very, very helpful in laying it out for everyone involved in this process. And so I want to acknowledge staff's efforts on that. And any other questions? And I don't know if anyone else noted it, but remember, we're partly working through this path to move ourselves out of a job, other than those who may transition to the advisory council. So thank you, staff, again for laying out that path for us. So we will move on to agenda item 4D, which is another informational item that Ying will lead off, and it's an update on the Office of Accessibility and Equity Development and the OAE Program Manager recruitment process. And again, all of these materials are in your staff report, but Ying, take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Very brief, the information is in your packet. I just want to highlight from the Authority Board's action in December, the framework is the establishment of this Office of Accessibility and Equity, as well as the opening of a position called Accessibility and Equity Program Manager. I really need to get used to the name. Okay. So my staff report just summarizes the points leading to those steps and the responsibilities of this office, as well as the responsibilities of this program manager. In the staff report, we further explain funding, how we anticipate those activities to be funded. We're looking at Measure J, which is the current sales tax, and Measure X, which is from the county's sales tax, and how they align with the functions we are including here. That kind of concludes my presentation. And John, you're welcome to add anything as we talk about the office as well as the funding. Thank you.
I know I'm muted before somebody says it really fast. John, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add to Ying's summary, but yeah, I'm available to answer any questions on that and specifically to the county's Measure X funds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So any task force members have any questions or comments on this update? If you would raise your hand, your virtual or your real hand. And I'm not seeing any, and I want to give them, any members of the public, the opportunity to comment on or 4A as well, because I realized that I didn't do that under 4A or this item, the update on the program manager recruitment. And Jackie, do you see any hands raised?
No, no hands raised and no comment received on these.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that, we will move on to item C. And this is to, staff is actually seeking approval. So this is an action item to approve or establish an accessible transportation strategic plan working group to advise. And you saw on the timeline that group will be meeting monthly to look at a lot of and work on a lot of items that will come to this group prior to going for recommendation to the authority board. So Ying, do you want to do an overview?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for actually setting the stage. As you see in the first item, the work plan, we have quite a bit of work to do, and we really want to get input from a diverse group of stakeholders. That's why we are considering the working group concept. We did have a working group last year, and now we are kind of build on that by forming a new working group that includes some task force members and also includes all of the suburban bus operators, because they are really going to be an important part of the entire process. So in your packet, we include the proposed working group members and identify them as both the task force members as well as the stakeholders, the non-task force members. We have a tentative schedule. What we're asking you is to authorize the formation of this working group, and with knowing the work plan we have and what we want to accomplish this year. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you. So I see that Debbie Toth has her hand raised. If anyone else has any comments or questions, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Debbie.
Thank you, Chair Geringer. I'm just gonna say I'm a little overwhelmed with the committees. Like I appreciate the spreadsheet and the work plan and looking at how the workflow is what's gonna be covered when, who, where. I feel like there also should be sort of like, these are the 500 committees we just talked about, and here's when they're meeting, and here's what their role is. Like a similar kind of just to ground us, because I felt like there was already an accessible transportation strategic plan task force work group. Like in addition to this group, we've been meeting as a work group, right? Already. No? Or am I confused? Like this is, I feel like there's been two parallel processes going on already. And now we're adding another one with the same name of the one that's already been meeting. So I forgive me if it's just me. But
does anybody, it's the same group with some additional members who have been added who are not part of the task force, but are representatives of the transit operators. Actually, every one of the transit operators has a representative coming to that working group. So it's not a new working group. And there is a legend on the top of the timeline, but we can definitely be more clear about what each of the roles are on that timeline and that sheet.
And I would say the membership, like how are we determining why do we have 6 providers on that? Or, you know, like, are you going to have stakeholder voices? I don't understand, I guess, the makeup, the purpose, all of that stuff. So it's probably just me. I apologize, everybody, but my brain's a little broken these days, but I promise it will get better.
I don't know if someone else wants to, one of the
Yeah.
staff members wants to jump in, but I could have my thoughts, but go ahead, Ying.
Sorry, I think he may have more to add. So Debbie, just for the, I know we keep saying working group is the same group we met in January the 24th. We kind of jump ahead and held the meeting because we want to prepare for this meeting. But we want to formalize, we want to come back to the task force and ask for the formal approval. Our staff thinks that is more the right procedure, and to ask the task force to formally take an action to approve the formation of this working group. Last year, there was a working group that worked on the guiding principles. And we can see this a continuation, but since we're talking about different tasks, and so we think it's probably cleaner to just request for the formation of this new working based on the roster we have.
Does that answer it, Debbie? The other piece is that the task force members also represent the stakeholders who are also involved. And so at the addition of the transit operators is to balance out, all of that. And because it's important for all of us to be at the table, so including you. So thank you for continuing to serve on the working group. So any other questions or comments? Member Xavier, Rita?
Just noticing that a couple of members are retired now. So have they actually stated that they'll be willing to be on it?
Yes, they have. And thank you for noting that. Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, they have. And part of that is that, they had begun this work and they want to see it continue forward. And so they have volunteered to come out of retirement to continue to serve. So
That's great.
thank you. Any other questions or comments? Do we receive any public comment on this item, Jackie? And are there any members of the public who want to speak on the item?
We have not
No.
received any written public comment on this item, and I don't currently see any hands raised either.
Great, thank you. So do we have a motion to appoint a working group?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Haskew and a second by Member Carlson. Jackie, will you conduct the vote?
Yes, thank you. Member Barnes,
Yes.
Member Burgess,
Yes.
Member Braxton,
Yes.
Member Carlson,
Yes.
Member Franklin,
Yes.
Member Hudson, Member Hirsch, Member Kamara,
Yes.
Member Levin, Member McCrary,
Yes.
Member Meyer, Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Toth,
Yes.
Member Xavier,
Yes.
Vice Chair Haskew,
Yes.
Chair Geringer.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously with members Hudson, Hirsch, Levin, and Meyer absent.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you for those who have volunteered to be on the working group in addition to the task force work. So we will now move on to agenda item 4D, which is another informational item where staff is also asking for input, and it will be on the One Seat Ride pilot program background and update. And I will turn it again over to Ying to kick this off.
Thank you, Chair. I promise I won't dominate the conversation. This is going to be a tag team. And I'm going to invite Naomi to help co-present. Naomi, first, do you want me to share screen or you would do that?
Let me try.
Oh, I can do it.
I have it set up so I can.
Okay, all right, great.
Is that good?
So this week, I just want to kick it off. And like I said, it's a tag team, and Naomi will help present the slides, and then we want to give you an update on our effort, and second, we want to, for the most part, actually open up for conversation and get your input. Just a heads up, I also have also asked member Kamara to help fill in some of the details. So it's going to be a true team effort. With that being said, Naomi, are you ready to help us with this presentation?
Yes. All right. So we've been discussing the current One Seat Ride program for several months and meeting with stakeholders to consider what kind of expansion we could do into Western Contra Costa County. And you can see the partners that we've met with, County Connection, WestCat, East Bay Paratransit, so AC Transit and BART staff. And as we've had these discussions, a number of items have come up, key issues. And so here's a summary of some of them. One is service reliability, that their providers might have a lack of capacity, partially because we know that there's staffing issues and problems finding drivers. So sometimes there are issues with serving the current needs. And then there's also a question about rescue service capacity, and rescue service is when the designated contractor is unable to do the requested ride. And I'm going to hand this over in a minute to Rashida to tell us a lot more about that, because Rashida is the expert. But I'm going to finish this list first. So there's also concern about service management. We're talking about a lot of different partners. So if we have an expanded area, who is responsible for scheduling and dispatching these rides, since we're dealing with so many different partners? There's a concern about fare disparities because the different providers have different base fares. And so currently the fare depends on what area your trip is starting in. And so if those are very different fares between two areas, what are we doing with that disparity? It's a question. There's also questions about how do we report the data on these rides to the National Transit Database, and what are the FTA rules around this? Because that issue, actually, when we've spoken to people high up on a federal level, those issues are actually somewhat in flux right now. Marketing, we need to be able to communicate the specific parameters of One Seat Ride service to riders, since it is different from standard ADA paratransit. There's also a concern, a broad concern, some of the subscription trips that providers provide to, for instance, the regional center can be very demanding, and that they are every day, perhaps, both going and coming. So how does that fit into a service like this, which again, as I said, is different from a regular ADA paratransit service? And then also in the big picture, what is long-term sustainable funding for this program? So as I said, many key issues have come up, and I'd like to invite Rashida to tell us more about the rescue trips.
Thank you. Two things, if you don't mind, you can keep this slide up, because I believe that a couple of things that I have to mention surround some of these key items that you've brought up. First, I'd like to say that this program is now going on about 2.5 years, and the One Seat Ride has revolutionized transportation in this region for many. It's revolutionized transportation for the operators, and it's literally a miracle to our passengers. We started this in the middle of COVID, and not only was it, we were able to address some safety concerns when it came to contact tracing, but we were able to resolve a plethora of operational issues by the way that this was set up. So I'd like to say overall that even though this slide discusses issues, it's important to note that the One Seat Ride is an extremely successful program. And I don't want this slide to not, or this whole entire meeting to not reflect that we're doing miracles for our passengers, as so we should. Now, since 2.5 years ago, ridership has increased. Anybody driving now in the Bay Area, as you know, we're starting more in-person meetings. So ridership has increased. When we first started this program, we were meeting all of our KPIs, key performance indicators, on-time performance. You know, the calls were answered very quickly. But as service continues to grow for all of the partners, plus also maybe a shortage of drivers, our current service, even though we're meeting those needs, just like any paratransit service, you start getting a little twinkle. Oh, complaint. Oh, the driver was about 30 minutes late. You know, it took about 3 more minutes for them to answer my call. So as brought up in this first bullet point, how do we continue to keep our current service? This is outside of a West County expansion, continue to keep it robust and continue to keep it, the quality of it really high. That's something that we definitely need to take a look at. Now, regarding point 1, regarding rescue service, our current service has a redundancy plan for rescue. And that redundancy plan is that if our contractor cannot go out because let's say the driver has a flat tire, we send out a county connection vehicle into whatever service area that belongs to these partner agencies, and we do not let a trip burn. We go out there and we pick them up. Why this is stated as an issue here for expansion is because now we're talking about West County. The service area is definitely much larger. So what does it look like to send a county connection vehicle all the way into maybe El Sobrante or El Cerrito? Definitely a much longer ride. So the idea of trying to figure out what we're going to do about a rescue vehicle is a real thing. Do we engage more contractors? Do we diversify our fleet a little bit? All of these things have definitely come up. Service management. Service management is actually one of the key successes of a one seat because it took the service management of regional transfer trips out of the hands of all of the participating providers and put it in County Connections call center. This was the simplicity of this, the simplicity and the beauty of this. And if there is going to be an expansion, if we want to keep it simple, you want to keep it streamlined, not just for the operator, but making sure that all the data is kept in one place. The passenger just speaks to one person. The shared cost and everything we have to report is all kept in one place. It is very important that this is addressed and kept that way so that schedules, dispatchers, everything comes out of one place. And those are some of the areas that add to the cost is if it's divvied up. Regarding fare disparities, we use the word disparities here, but this is not a negative thing. All the transit agencies have their different fares. And one of the things that we did was that the current participating transit providers are collaborating to streamline this service. So literally a passenger, whichever jurisdiction you step on the bus, that's the fare that you pay. It doesn't necessarily mean that it'll continue to stay that way, but in order to get this program off of the ground, this was one of the easiest way in order to push this forward. So it's definitely something that we want to look at as we continue to expand or potentially add more partners. The data reporting to NTD and FTA, the reason why this program has not been made permanent is really because of this particular hook. NTD, the National Transit Database with the Federal Transportation Authority, they have databases and algorithms in which they calculate our trip count and as such, divvy up cost and funding. They have been unable to modify as of yet their calculating algorithms to account for these wonderful things that we're doing. As far as they're concerned, if Tri-Delta picks up a passenger, that's one passenger. If they meet at County Connection at a meet point and County Connection picks up the same passenger, it's technically 2 passengers. But you and I both know that we've streamlined it, that it's not 2 passengers, it's 1 passenger in 2 buses. But now with 1 seat is 1 passenger in 1 bus. So more to come regarding that particular piece. Regarding marketing, our current system is open to all of our ADA passengers, regardless of where they're going, because we do all transfer trips. We don't have eligibility requirements to facilities or agencies. We have an eligibility obligation to an individual. They're the ones we interviewed. They're the ones that filled out the application. And it was based on their ability or inability to use fixed route service that we determined their eligibility for our service. And since we offered trips that allow them to travel across different jurisdictions, this was not a parameter that we set up during the pilot. But it's definitely something that we need to look at as we look at growth. And that's the reason why it's on here. So how do we market if we're going to expand? Are we going to have limits? Are we going to say certain individuals can't travel? Are we going to say that they're going to be specific trip types? Definitely something to look at. Now, concern about demand and subscription trips. If there are any folks in here that are operators, one of the things that you want to do regarding trips that whatever it is, whenever you can do subscription trips, in other words, people are going at the same time on the same day, and you can predict that type of travel behavior, and you can group people so that you don't have your driver going all helter-skelter, is definitely something to do. But as was mentioned earlier, the question that was brought up, what if we have agencies or we have facilities that are maybe trip dumping? How will that affect our subscription? How will that affect our core service? Important to note that when we do put subscription trips up there, they're not mandated by the ADA that we have a subscription trip, which is at the convenience of the passenger, but also at the convenience of the operator, because it takes calls away from coming in the call center, and the driver knows where they're going on a day-to-day basis. But we can only limit subscription trips to 50% at a certain given hour. So if everybody wants to travel at 9 o'clock, everybody can't have a subscription at 9 o'clock. Why? Because we have some individuals that want to travel at 9 o'clock that maybe today are just going to the grocery store. We should be able to give them a trip at that particular time. So definitely something important that we need to be able to take a look at. And then last but not least, long-term sustainable funding for our program. This is a very successful program. I had a meeting with all the partners today, and if there's one thing that they all decided, that this is a program that cannot go away. We are going to be fighting tooth and nail to keep this program, one, as it is. Two, we certainly believe in an expansion, both in ridership, but also in geographic nature, because as we mentioned, when this program first started, one, it's the right thing to do. Two, there's so many operational issues that are resolved by this. Three, the cost of it is down. But if it is going to grow either by volume or by expansion, how do we fund it so that it's sustainable? How do we fund it so that it is sustainable? So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about this. If I die or retire today, if there's something that we're able to do for our passengers where we change the way that we offer them service, this is an opportunity to strike while the iron is hot, and making sure that we build a one-seat ride that works not just now, but so that those of us who are building it get an opportunity to use it and change the way transportation is delivered in the Bay Area. I mean, I can't imagine something better. So that's my 2 cents or 6 cents.
Thank you. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about what's going on in West County or not going on in West County. So we're trying to provide some visuals. We know that West County is served by WestCat and East Bay Paratransit, and also by city programs. And since East Bay Paratransit is not participating in the one-seat ride currently, we've highlighted that area in red. So then the areas that are in blue are the other providers in Contra Costa County. So those are their service areas. There is also, we've put in a layer of disability density, which is the gray. And keep in mind that this does not indicate ADA paratransit participation. This is census data, so it's really just to give us an idea. And what we find is that disability density does generally align with population. So you're seeing really population density. So we can see there is a dense population in West County. This is not a surprise to most of us, I believe. So that is the area that is in red, or a good portion of that is in red in the East Bay Paratransit area. I also want to note a couple of quirks. So LAVTA, which is an Alameda County provider, is also part of the One Seat Ride current program. And so there's an arrow pointing to that section of Alameda County, which is the Tri-Valley, Dublin, Pleasant, and Livermore. I also want to note that East Bay Paratransit's service area covers the rest of Alameda County, so that the people who are in the red area can get a de facto one-seat ride to the rest of the East Bay Paratransit service area already, that are registered with East Bay Paratransit. And I know not everyone is. So those are just a couple of details about this map, but this is what we are looking at. And then this is another map, which tells us mostly the same thing in a slightly different format. You know, we went through a lot of maps this week trying to find the best way to help illustrate what's going on. So this one, we have the service areas outlined in black. And often for the other providers besides East Bay Paratransit, we're looking at city boundaries because the providers don't necessarily stick to the 3/4 mile ADA guideline. And we've got the density of people with disabilities in the brown, the shades of brown. And we want to recognize some other things. I'm going to turn this over to Ying.
Thank you, Naomi, and thank you, Rashida, for the very good presentation. Can we just land on the last slide, please, Naomi? So the reason why we bring this up, give you an update, not only the regular update, but we want to highlight the success of the current One Seat Ride program. We want to highlight to you the challenges we have with the expansion to the West County area. But we also want to kind of take a step back and look at the problems and open up a discussion of what else we can do. When do we continue on the One Seat Ride expansion? We're not giving up on that, even though it can be frustrating at times that there's not enough progress. But we want to focus on a few things and look for some alternatives. First, I've been about some small group conversations. We talk about how we can enhance a rescue trip that kind of improve service reliability. Rashida has some good ideas. We hope to bring to this task force some proposal for you to consider. And we also want to look at some of the trips that haven't been served. For example, the medical trips from the West County area to Martinez, as well as to outside of our county. We also have conversations with West County cities and WIPAC on their desire to see a pilot to serve the population. That's why we open up to the last one. We want to hear from you what other priorities you want us to work on, what other ideas we may have to get to either a long-term solution or something short-term using the class of pilot to get some services, improve the services to the West County area. So I am going to conclude my presentation and just want to open up for your questions and discussion.
Okay, thank you. So we could pull down, thank you, the PowerPoint. So we will ask members, and I see hands going up, if to provide input or if you have questions and or comments. And so we will start with Debbie Toth. And you're on mute, Debbie.
I am. It was amazing. But you saw me. You saw me
Yes,
speaking with
and
my
it was
Italian
passionate.
side. My Italian
Yes.
side. Yeah. So I was saying that I could probably take up an hour with my comments and questions that I have. So I mean, it's really hard for me to like focus down. I will just start with one thank you. The maps that showed the density and the disability populations I've never seen come out of CCTA, and I am thrilled that we are taking this seriously and really doing this deep look and dive into this. So thank you. Two, I want to thank Rashida for her leadership and persistence and passion around this. I think that Rashida is a unicorn in the world of the transit services and the dedication that she has to the people who ride on paratransit. I want to just call out the elephant in the room, which is we wouldn't have to have a one-seat ride program if we had one transit provider or some contract that removed all these artificial boundaries. And I don't know enough. I should state my level of expertise has to do with the people that come to our adult day healthcare program and their needs, not how the fixed route transportation world works. So I should just lay that out there right now. But whatever the cost is, it seems to me to be far less expensive to have one rider in one vehicle going one place. It just makes more sense that way. So maybe it's a contract that says, and I will say my ignorance, I don't know these things, but if County Connection is spending $200,000 a year on paratransit trips, and Tri-Delta is spending $150,000 and WestCat is spending $300,000, then you take the percentages and you say, this is what your percentage of cost is going to be for this program moving forward. Like there may be simple ways to do this and have it not cost so much money and take so much bureaucracy. I just feel like we are living in a world of complication because we have artificial boundaries. And I don't know if there's a way to solve for that or not, but it just seems to me to be far less expensive, as Rashida laid out. The one seat, one vehicle, one destination seems to be far less expensive than what we do when we don't have that. I want to thank everybody who participated and is participating in the one seat ride. I don't think that Rashida was being hyperbolic when she said that it's a miracle for the people who ride it. But my question is, who knows it exists? Because we aren't promoting it, and because people who stop doing transfer trips because of the harm to them aren't going to naturally know that it exists and come out of the woodwork and ask for it. Like, so there are some issues around that. I'm going to make one more point and then I'm going to let other people talk. I have so much more to say about this, but I feel remiss if I don't elevate the fact that when we look at that first map that you showed where we have the area in red that is not being served, I am going to say that that is a disproportionately BIPOC population, and this is an equity issue, and we can't not address that. I don't know what that looks like, how that looks, but it's got to be said and it's got to be addressed. Okay, that's all. Thank you. I mean, I have so much more, but I'm going to say that's all for now.
And of course, Debbie, we will, I will ask staff to talk to how we can make sure that we get all of that input offline that may come up after, or that you may think of after, or that we may not pick up today. So next we have Rashidi and then Rita Xavier.
Yeah, I too want to echo Rashida's effort, County Connections effort in this program. Coming from Southern California, I know that this type of program is a heavy lift, especially amongst multiple operators with the sheer geographical coverage that we have. With that said, on slide 2, it just didn't have Tri-Delta Transit as a partner. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that we are a partner. It just, for whatever reason, wasn't listed.
Probably because it's looking at West County, but noted. Okay, Rita.
Okay, I have a few points to make, but I would like to thank whoever came up with this discussion and the maps. They're great, absolutely great. In fact, when my city manager gets back from the Cal Cities conference in San Diego this week, I'm going to share those maps with him. To begin with, we need to start talking about people that are not ADA qualified. There are many, many seniors who don't drive, who don't really have a way to get anywhere, but they don't qualify for East Bay Paratransit. So I think we really have to get into that. As far as places to go, the top priorities, I would say, for people from West County would get to Martinez, which was mentioned, but also to Pleasant Hill, Concord, and Walnut Creek for medical appointments, or the hospital, John Muir, or for county offices, some of which are in Pleasant Hill. Those are my ideas for that. WCTAC staff has good ideas on how to approach this in West County, because they deal with the city paratransit programs. So they know what's available, they know who they're working with, and so on. So I believe the WCTAC staff, John Nemeth and his staff, should be contacted and asked for input. There's a lot more, but that's it for right now.
Thank you, Rita. And I want to thank you, Rita, because I know over the course of the year, you have been bringing up the information about this in every conversation that we've had. So thank you for continuing to elevate that. And next we have Bob Franklin.
Thank you. So on the last page of the presentation, I think the fourth bullet or so, it mentioned that you're tracking regional initiatives. And I was just wanting to clarify, is that on regional centers or MTC's initiative, or they're studying paratransit in this one-seat ride?
So is that Naomi or, yeah?
Yes, what we meant by that was MTC's Transit Transformation Action Plan work, which includes looking at one-seat ride pilots.
Great, thank you, Naomi.
Thank you for that question. And Naomi, while you have your hand up, did you have something else to add? Or?
No, I just wanted to answer Bob.
Okay, thank you. And I will say that, Ying, do you want to speak to the conversations with WCTAC, that those conversations have been taking place, or John, and that those will continue?
Yes, thank you. We actually have a few conversations. We have quite a long one after yesterday, and there will be follow-up in the next couple of weeks to go into some details and how the focus is really better understand the needs and come up with some ideas of how we can find some solutions, not to wait for a long time, but more like interim solutions and put those in the pilot and see if we can implement it in West County. It's a balancing act. We know the current one-seat ride program is very successful. I think in an ideal world, we would like to expand it to West County and provide the same service to all county residents. But as we explained, there are some challenges, and instead of just wait for one thing to happen, we want to look at other options, not to give up the big dream, but look at other alternatives that we can turn around quicker. So that's what now your input is really, really helpful.
Okay, thank you. And Rob,
Yeah, so
welcome.
just, I mean, I guess it's a pet peeve at the moment because I keep hearing that there's no one-seat ride in West County. That's not true. I mean, I know it's a terminology thing, but Westcott is part of West County. We provide the partners on the one-seat ride. I think just because this conversation goes beyond the people who really understand the situation, it'd be great if we could kind of term it a little bit better so it doesn't feel to me like Westcott is just forgotten in the mix. We are partners in this. We have been from the start. You know, we're working to put the best service we can and work with East Bay Public Transit to expand it for the rest of West Contra Costa. But, you know, partners in this, we provide trips to the residents of Pinole and Hercules, to Martinez, to all of the centers, you know, so just, I would appreciate if we could find a better way of terming it as like, there's no service in West County.
Thank you very much. And I also wanted to thank you, Rob, for bringing that up. I also wanted to echo the shout outs to Rashida, and particularly in celebrating the successes, and that while we're trying to address challenges and gaps and expand the program, we do need to step back and celebrate those successes. And so, Rashida?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this was also a success as a result of the partnerships, the collaboration. For just many years, it almost seems as if transit agencies tend to work in their silos. We're just, you know, little truckers moving around trying to move our people in our jurisdictions. This was an opportunity for all of us to get together. We all have our core service. We know our passenger is the same, but this was a manifestation of that collaboration. So I cannot and will not take all the credit for this. This cannot have been done without the yeses of all the partnering agencies and them wanting to get this done. So this has truly been a partnership, and I think that our collective rider and our collective ability to serve our passengers in this new way has been enhanced. So I think it's something that all of us can celebrate as contributing to its success.
Great, thank you. So are there any other input? And I see Carol McCrary has her hand up.
Hi, Rashida, you're amazing. I know from all the years of experience working alongside you, you're fantastic. My concern is what was referred to as trip dumping by the Regional Center of the East Bay. Our services at Vistability are heavily dependent on outside transportation to get people to employment and other activities in the community. And just today, Regional Center has been contracting with a private vendor to transport quite a few people. And just today at one location, 34 people were not transported because of their COVID policies. If they have one passenger who tests positive for COVID, they don't transport anybody for the next so many days. So the rest of this week, we have 34 people at one location that are not going to be able to be served, which is ridiculous. I'm wondering, has Regional Center been at the table at any point, or have they been pulled in as a partner to our potential partner at any time?
Thank you, Rashida, of course.
That's a good question, but as I mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, individuals are made eligible for our service based on their individual application. Our current service is open to all that is ADA eligible. We currently don't do trip-by-trip eligibility. We currently don't do facility by facility eligibility. And when I say trip-by-trip eligibility, as in trip type eligibility, if you need the one seat because you were going to your favorite hairdressers, or your favorite nail shop, or your cancer specialist, or your adult daycare facility, whatever it is you were using public transportation for, you were using the one seat for. And so at the current service, it was not necessary to delineate or distinguish or to pull them in. It was about how do we manage to streamline the service for a rider, one, during COVID, but two, operationally speaking, and bring the cost down. So from that perspective, it was not necessary to segregate partners or stakeholders. It was really just about the passenger. What does the passenger need? How do we streamline it for the operator? And how do we streamline it for the passenger? That's what we took into consideration when we did it. And the partners are more than happy. Rob is here. Rashidi, although new, can probably speak to that, but that was our goal when we decided to solve the problem. It was a passenger-oriented problem, and it was an operational problem that needed to be resolved.
And I was looking at the list of key issues, and demanding subscription trips was one of them, which is credited to the regional centers clientele. So I'd just like to talk about this more at some point. Maybe it can be streamlined and less costly, less single passenger trips.
If I may, just to wrap that up, Naomi can probably speak a little bit more to that. These issues speak to the potential expansion into the East Bay portion of the West County, not the Rob Westcott portion of West County. So in our discussions to expand in that way, these were some of the things that were brought up. So it's currently not an issue with the existing program, but it probably is something we want to take a look at as we organically expand the program, especially when it comes to certain facilities. Let's take, Regional Center of the East Bay out of it for a second. Let's take a dialysis unit. Let me just use dialysis units as an example. Dialysis units usually try not to have everybody booked and put in the chair. If you have 10 chairs, you book 10 people at 9 o'clock, you book 10 people at 3 p.m., you book 10 people at 8 p.m., but you certainly don't book all 30 people at 9 a.m., right? So let's take, so now, but when we talk about Regional Center of the East Bay, a lot of these facilities have a 9 to 2, all 30 of them, 9 to 2. So when you talk about subscriptions and you talk about specific facilities, then that's when you realize how this could potentially be a problem. So if you look at a particular demographic of individuals or facilities and their needs, how do their specific needs tie into subscriptions, and how does it affect other paratransit trips? So it'll be difficult for any transit agency that is servicing the person that wants to go to the grocery store, the person that wants to go to their cancer treatment, the person that wants to go to dialysis, or the person that wants to go to their grandson's T-ball party, also wanting to travel at 9 o'clock. And then capacity has been overran by just a specific demographic of individuals at 9 o'clock. That is the purpose of putting that as an issue on this list. And Bob Franklin is from BART. He may be able to speak to the East Bay Paratransit piece of this, or Nelson Nygaard might be able to speak to the East Bay Paratransit piece of this. But having worked at East Bay Paratransit myself for 20 years, I understand why this potentially could be a concern. And it could be a concern not just for East Bay Paratransit, but it could potentially be a concern for this existing program. It's not now, but it doesn't mean it shouldn't be on this list to be reviewed or keep an eye on as we grow.
Thank you.
Great. Naomi, you had your hand up first, but Bob Franklin also put his hand up. So
I just wanted to confirm really quickly what Rashida supposed, and Bob can say a lot more about this than I can, but that was put down as a key issue because of East Bay Paratransit's ongoing discussions with the regional center around these transportation challenges. And I hand it over to Bob.
Thank you both.
Yeah, and Mallory knows even more. But yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Naomi said. And so that the regional centers, which we've been working with, trying to get them to make some changes to better serve. They put some big peaks on our paratransit schedule, and they make it hard. Like it's 9 and 2 o'clock when we have a big rush on a daily basis for the regional centers. So it's a challenge. It's a big challenge in our providing our service.
Thank you. So any other comments or questions? I think Rita was the one. I do want to thank staff for bringing this, and we get updates, but it's very important. A lot of good information has and other challenges have been raised here. And Ying, I guess, well, first, are there any members of the public who want to comment on this? Do we receive any written public comment, Jackie?
No written public comment received.
And I don't see any hands up. So, so coming back to staff, I guess, a couple of people have said that there are a lot of, they have other questions and other input. And so what are the next steps for this and in terms of digging into this?
Yes, staff is here and consultant were happy to talk to any one of you in more details to understand your questions. And as you mentioned, we continue the dialogue with TAC and other West County different agencies. And we will also want to talk to County Connection and the other two operators on how do we enhance the existing One Seat Ride program on the rescue trip. There's some ideas we want to look back with you to see how we can mostly improve service reliability. It's a great service. We seem to have a good problem to solve. That is, we have high demand, and that is something we want to address in a very proactive way. And yeah, just our lines are open, and we'd love to hear from you for your ideas and input.
Okay, anybody, Naomi, John, any other? Okay, so we have received lots of input. I know we will have a working group meeting between now and the next task force meeting, so we can potentially look at having that be a discussion item there as well, even though I don't, luckily we're on Zoom, so none of staff is sort of kicking me under the table because we have a pretty extensive agenda already on that. But this is important, and it is one of the priorities that came out of the strategic plan, and that expansion is important. So thank you again to Rashida and Bob and everyone for coming forward with the great input on this. So if there aren't any other comments on that item, we will move to agenda item 5, which is correspondence and communications. And we didn't have any thing related to that unless there are any members of the task force who have something they want to lift up here. And if not, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all very much. Thank you to staff. And we are adjourning to April 13th at 2 p.m. So you should have been receiving all of your invites for that. So thank you.